Who are your heroes? Who are the people who move and inspire you? There are heroes who accomplish great things in the face of great odds, whose feats of audacity and achievement make them seem larger than life. But then there are heroes of another sort, whose feats may not seem larger than life, but are interwoven deeply into the fabric of life on Earth. Heroes who work tirelessly, selflessly, to save what might otherwise be lost. In the world of conservation, our heroes are the people who strive to save Earth's wild places and the animals that inhabit them. But animals and habitats are only part of the story, because conservation is also about helping people live in harmony with the wild next door. It's recognizing traditions and practices that have been part of a culture for centuries. For others, it's about survival. For what we do today affects our planet for generations to come. This is not in question. The facts are in. The science is done. We know what we need to do to save our wild places. And we need to recognize the people who are leading the way. The Indianapolis Prize exists to honor and inspire conservation, to support the efforts of these extraordinary pioneers and help them keep fighting the good fight. The challenges have never been greater, but neither has our will to make a difference. These are the people of conservation. You can call them researchers or scientists or conservationists, but let's call them what they really are. These are heroes, real heroes. And this is the Indianapolis Prize.
The men and women you'll meet have poured their hearts and minds into conservation. They've dedicated decades of their lives to their passion. And yes, you just saw and heard actor Harrison Ford. He's a conservationist in his own right, and he's offering his support to the wildlife champions we're celebrating. Hello, I'm John Stair. And we begin here in the Desert's Dome at the Indianapolis Zoo with the radiated tortoise. These guys are endangered in Madagascar. It is a species and place that goes to the heart of the winner of this year's Indianapolis Prize.
I've been coming here since 1975. What gets me excited is that it is still in such good shape. Suriname is 94% covered in rainforest, 4 million acres. It's a World Heritage Site.
And really, this one mountain, the Wolfsberg, is the symbol of the entire country.
My dad, he's always kind of exemplified to me the jungle explorer character. As a kid growing up, he wasn't around very often, but when we traveled abroad together, he became kind of this larger-than-life character.
This is why they call them cock of the rock, because they live in these rocky areas, big boulders. When the sun comes out, you hear the sound of this bird. There you go. It's an exploded lek.
In a career spanning over 4 decades, Russell Mittermeier has been chasing his passion around the globe. He's a Time magazine hero for the planet and is credited with the discovery of over 20 animal species new to science, 8 of which were named in his honor.
Russ is a very accomplished scientist, got a PhD in anthropology, is a reptile specialist, a primate specialist. he has a solid science foundation. But he's very to the ground, you know, he looks at species, he looks at habitat, and this is what he has dedicated his life to.
He's written 15 books, over 400 scientific papers. He is teaching. He is running an organization, but he's still got time for the field work.
Ready? Here we are in the Virungas National Park, Kopanami River at Fungo Island, Congo portion of the Virunga volcanoes.
The one mantra that he always has, no matter where we go, is, "It's fine, I'm from the Bronx."
When it bubbles, it means it's working.
One day he could be meeting with the heads of state and leave the meeting, change into his vest and his shorts and his hat, and be on a plane, on a boat, trekking through the jungle.
He's one of these kind of guys that makes you angry because he speaks Portuguese and Spanish and German and some Malagasy, an irritating amount of languages.
Yeah, that's Russ. You see those shorts he's wearing? I mean, they're just held together with a hope and a prayer.
As head of Conservation International from 1989 to 2014, a main area of focus was the expansion of Dr. Norman Mayer's concept of working in biodiversity hotspots. Hotspots are regions that are home to some of the world's richest ecosystems, but are also among the most threatened. On the opposite end of the conservation spectrum, high biodiversity wilderness areas are the few remaining spots on the globe that are still largely intact. For Mittermeier, the small South American country of Suriname has remained a favorite since he completed his thesis there in the mid-1970s.
When I started working here, everything was intact, everything was great. Then the Malaysians and the Indonesian loggers came in right on top of where the Volksberg is located. And I just said, no, it's enough, not here.
Russ sat down, talked to the government, showed there's an alternative. Ecotourism, carbon credits, medicinal plants, all of these other options.
And now, this area is being connected to the Southern Suriname Conservation Corridor, and that's an additional 7.2 million hectares. That's about 4 times the size of the state of New Jersey.
Russ has been coming here for 43 years, so he knows a lot of these chiefs. He was there when they were kids, so that has created that space for constructive dialogue.
There was always that idea from Russ that we want to protect this whole big piece of forest. They decided that they don't want destructive activities within their lands.
Hey, Mickey, you think you missed any plants in the forest so far? I think you shouldn't miss any plants. Try to photograph every single species you see.
In 2017, Mittermeier joined Global Wildlife Conservation, a group dedicated to species conservation through science-based fieldwork, a move motivated by a desire to keep doing what he loves the most.
If you look out over this landscape in all directions, 360 degrees, south to Brazil, north to the capital, you're looking at unbroken, pristine tropical rainforest.
He wants to make sure that he shares it with the people he loves, and that's part of why he wants to protect it. He just really loves it. It consumes him in every aspect of his life. And that all started there at the Volksberg. When he passes away, I'll go up and put a statue there of him lying down like he always does when he gets to somewhere, lying on his backpack. Classic dad.
There is nobody like Russ Mittermeier. If we had a dozen Russ Mittermeiers, it would be a great thing. But we don't, we got one.
All of the conservationists you will see, like Russ Mittermeier, have made a lasting impact on our planet. You may not know just how powerful their work is, so we want to share with you some remarkable milestones. Russ's efforts have helped primates remain the only large group of mammals that has not lost a single species to extinction in the last 100 years. Rodney Jackson, who studies snow leopards, was involved in several historic discoveries. His work contributed to snow leopards being reclassified from endangered to vulnerable. And you'll hear about ocean environments named Hope Spots by Sylvia Earle's Mission Blue. Marine protected areas are ideal for scientific study and give hope for wildlife, especially coral reefs. Sylvia Earle's work, like that on Hope Spots, will inspire you. Her energy and drive are endless. She has said, every time I slip into the ocean, it's like going home. For her, going deep underwater is a high calling that began even before she started high school.
She's Queen Sylvia. She's Jacques Cousteau Sylvia. She not only goes in water, she walks on water.
When it comes to protecting the sea, it's like Ghostbusters. Who are you going to call? Sylvia Earle.
Sylvia's an explorer. She's a scientist, so she's always pushing the envelope, just relentless in that drive to go deeper, go further, be the first human to lay eyes on a part of our world.
After earning a PhD from Duke University, she applied for the groundbreaking TechType project in 1969, an underwater installation off the coast of the Virgin Islands. Sylvia Earle became the first woman to lead an undersea expedition, giving an all-female team of scientists weeks of uninterrupted study.
People just went crazy over the fact that these women went down there and they were able to carry the gear and they were doing all these things.
At the time, there weren't that many women divers. Scientists were selected based on the merits of the proposals that they made. It never occurred to me throughout my early years that I couldn't and shouldn't do what the guys do.
Throughout her career, Earle has made a habit breaking records and rules. In 1979, she walked untethered on the seafloor at the lowest depth of any woman in history. In 1990, she became the first female chief scientist of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Later, she turned her attention back to field work, using deep-sea filmmaking to bring the darkest corners of the ocean to a worldwide audience, and working to pioneer technology that will make deep-sea tourism a reality.
We could probably, outfit this with like a glove.
Developing these machines, we are looking to go deeper. We want to get all the way to the bottom. It's made her message stronger. More and more people are coming behind saying, I see what you're talking about. And an image is everything.
There's something I can do personally to be able to foster the technology to make it possible for CEOs of corporations for fishermen to go and see what it's really like down there. Let's get kids. No child left dry is my mantra.
I think her biggest achievement is being able to communicate what she's learned to other people through her lectures and through her books and her writings.
It's driven by passion, and that's very evident in her work. I want to be 80 and still doing that.
Earle received the 2009 TED Prize for her proposal to establish a global network of marine protected areas known as Hope Spots, areas where ocean life has been depleted but can rebound if protected. In 2006, Earle inspired then-President George W. Bush to create the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands Marine National Monument. In 2017, President Barack Obama expanded the protected area and came to see Earle's work firsthand.
I see one of your constituents has come up here.
I noticed. Doesn't seem that excited about meeting the president. All of us depend on these ecosystems. And
yes,
in some ways, they're incredibly resilient if we do the right thing, but they're also really fragile.
Beginning to get a network of hope around the blue part of the world, getting people to say, we need to safeguard this life support system that drives the way the world works. Let's make this a global public trust, the biggest hope spot in the world, the high seas. As long as I have a voice to work with people, I will. I have to. I don't have a choice.
Sylvia is active on Facebook. She often posts stories about what inspires her. You can also see some of her incredible underwater photos and read stories about her favorite dives. You might just discover another hero. You can see all of these stories about these champions of our planet on WTHR.com/IndyPrize. And you can follow the Indianapolis Prize on both Facebook and Twitter @IndyPrize. While the Indianapolis Prize celebrates people who work full-time in the field of conservation, there are also those who use their powerful voices and convictions to call attention to environmental needs. Actor Harrison Ford is one of those voices. See his commitment to nature and why he received a big honor too. Plus, prize finalist Rodney Jackson has the patience of a saint. He studies an animal he may only see every few years, but he knows saving it is critically important. You've probably heard about the special guests who came to the Indianapolis Prize Gala. He's a big deal. We've seen him on the screen in movies like Indiana Jones, Star Wars, and Patriot Games. But here in Indianapolis, his focus is conservation. Harrison Ford is known for blockbuster films, but his heart isn't just in Hollywood, it's also here, in the wild.
This is horrifying. Look at that. They just cut them at the base, dropped the trees, burned everything.
Right.
Wow.
This is not a movie. This is real.
Forests cut, trees laying on the ground, burnt where they fell.
Ford means business when it comes to the environment. Many people may not know that he spent years working on environmental efforts around the world, including this visit to an orangutan rescue center in Borneo. But not all of his work is in front of the camera. He's an honorary chair of the Indianapolis Prize and vice chair of Conservation International, where he narrated their documentary, The Ocean.
If nature isn't kept healthy, humans won't survive. Simple as that.
And is active in the organization's growth and projects. He and Indianapolis Prize winner Russ Mittermeier have worked together in the field. And as Ford sees it, Mittermeier's win is certainly a win for conservation.
We're all very grateful for all you've done to help save the environment. The work that you continue to do is some of the most important work that faces mankind.
Ford received the Jane Alexander Global Wildlife Ambassador Award from the Indianapolis Prize Committee. In 2016, actress Sigourney Weaver was awarded the Global Wildlife Ambassador Award. It's named after actress and environmentalist Jane Alexander, who is a longtime advocate for wild things and wild places. You see the stories about the work the Indianapolis Prize finalists are doing, and you think, I could never do that. Well, we can all do things to help the environment. We just need to start simple. Some people, and now even large companies, are starting with the straw. More than 500 million straws are used every day in the United States. Think about that number. 500 million plastic straws. They're dangerous to wildlife and take years to decompose. Switching to paper or reusable straws is just a small way to make a big change. Here at the zoo, they don't use single-use straws or lids as a way to protect the animals. They have reusable cups, lids, and straws. And remember, if you're using a water bottle like this and this ends up in a landfill, it would take 450 years to decompose. So look around you for ways to make a difference. Starting small counts. Be your own champion for the planet. The mission of the Indianapolis Zoo is conservation, hoping that you'll learn to care about the animals here and want to help them survive in the natural world. Indianapolis Prize finalist Rodney Jackson has made it his mission to protect an animal that even he has rarely seen in the wild.
Rodney's a wildlife biologist whose passion is saving one of the most amazing creatures on Earth. His office is the High Himalaya. He spends half of his time roaming around, following the paths of snow leopards and trying to learn as much about them as he can.
I was born in South Africa, grew up in Zimbabwe. I was a very quiet child, shy, and when I was around nature, I just felt so much more at ease. When I came to Nepal the first time, 1976, that opened many new ways of looking at nature. Snow leopards changed my life.
Rodney Jackson has devoted his life to conserving one of the most beautiful, elusive, and captivating of all the world's predators, the snow leopard. The cats primarily range in the high mountains of Asia and were endangered for decades due to human activities. But in order to save them, Jackson first had to find them. In the 1980s, he pioneered radio tracking collars and used camera traps to capture some of the first ever images of snow leopards in the wild.
To preserve any species, you need to know something about their numbers. Radio collars are fantastic because they allow you to follow a ghost, an animal you never see. You start to know about its habitat. Suddenly, here we could get information on how far the snow leopard would move each day. We're right past here. I think that opened so many worlds.
The hard-earned data obtained by tracking cats showed that there were more snow leopards in the wild than previously thought. But as human populations increased in the areas where the cats lived, Jackson was forced to turn his attention to mitigating conflict between local farmers and the snow leopard.
With snow leopards, they range over huge territory, over 12 different countries. What you've really got to do is change a culture. I was in a village with Rodney, and a snow leopard got in a corral and had killed 55 sheep and goat in one night, a single snow leopard. And it was about half the net worth of this village.
Protecting snow leopards may be lost in their minds, so you get this very strong conflict between the cat and the humans.
Rodney saw corral predator proofing as one of the biggest needs for saving the cats.
What we want to do is get them to value the snow leopard alive rather than dead. For governments and for countries to protect snow leopards, they really need long-term plans. There's a global plan called the G-SLIP that all of the 12 snow leopard nations have contributed to, with the goal that by the year 2020, they will have 20 landscapes of snow leopards secured from threat and thriving.
In 2017, the IUCN delisted the snow leopard from endangered to vulnerable. A small victory for Jackson, but there is still much more to do to ensure long-term success.
This snow leopard is about your age. I'm very encouraged. I really need to be working on mentoring the next generation of snow leopard conservationists, and that's going to be my goal for the next 10 years. I've been very frustrated at times because I've never seen a cat for weeks or years at a time. And then I just happened to look at the picture, to think about the cats, to revisit in my mind my early sightings. This animal, God, it's just so incredible. There's no question, I'm going back. I'm going back as long as I can walk.
All of these heroes had that unequivocal, determined drive that Jackson has. And that's what folks at the Indianapolis Prize see at the core of all their finalists. So why Indianapolis? Coming up, we'll talk to the leader of the Indianapolis Zoo and hear his inspiring words about how we can all make a difference. Plus, meet the man who tracks animals in some of the coldest places on Earth and see how he gets into the minds of the animals he's trying to save. I'm here with Michael Crowther, the director of the Indianapolis Zoo, and you've been here for, what, 15, 16 years now?
16 years.
And I'll tell you, as someone who has lived in this city, this zoo has changed dramatically in those 16 years. How is it different now than it was before?
I think that we've done a much better job of making people a part of the experience that we have here. They understand why we have animals here and what it does for those animals in the wild, and it sort of gives them a path that they can follow once they leave the zoo.
So it's not just about coming in and seeing the animals and having a nice day. There's conservation is at the core of it.
It's why we exist. Our mission statement is that we empower people and communities locally and globally to advance animal conservation. Having a zoo actually isn't even in the mission statement. It's just how we help advance the mission.
So why has this zoo decided to start the Indianapolis Prize and carry through on it for so long?
It's our commitment to the community and to the world as a whole. We understand that probably the biggest gift that we can give future generations is a world that they choose to live in, not one they're forced to endure. And in order to do that, they've got to have blue skies and green trees and sparkling lakes. And if we're going to continue to have that 100 years from now, we're going to need to maintain the biodiversity that supports all of those ecosystems.
And you know, I look at the Indianapolis Prize finalists and I see the amazing things that they're doing, but you know, I'm just a guy that has a different life and doing different things. How can I help? And how can people like me help?
Well, what they always ask us to do is travel, because they do know that once we see things the way they are in the wild, when we see the truly magnificent aspects of nature, we'll want to make sure that those things are around forever. But in addition to traveling, I think it's always important to vote properly. It's always important to support organizations that are doing good work. It's always important to educate children so that they don't just see what's on their doorstep, but beyond it.
Nearly 20 years ago, I was part of a journey halfway around the world to bring some of these rhinos from South Africa to Indianapolis. They've been thriving here ever since. Our next Indianapolis Prize finalist has gone farther, much farther than that, to help species survive and thrive in their natural environments. For Joel Berger, it's not just a job, it's a calling.
Being in a place like this, it gives inspiration. What we're doing is experiencing nature. It gives me a chance to think, gives me a chance to work, gives me a chance to look around. To detach from the world can be a very healthy thing. It's a chance not only to see your soul, but to see what else has been around far longer than we've been here.
Dr. Joel Berger puts his heart and soul into research and conservation around the globe, with key projects in the U.S., Mongolia, Namibia, Patagonia, and since 2007, Arctic climates. Here, Berger has studied the muskox, a lesser-known species living on the front lines of climate change.
Muskox give us some insights into the dynamics of how climate is affecting them. As we've been watching climate change occur at the top of the world, changing 2 to 3 times faster than the Earth's average, the opportunities for the muskox to go north further are gone because there's no more land.
He just wants to be out there doing the work and saving these species, saving these landscapes. He's advancing our ability to look at whole systems, to look at truly a global issue.
Here's a guy who's in his 60s. Most people slow down a bit, but Joel has got so much energy. He's got so much drive. He doesn't think small. He thinks about big problems and how to go about addressing them.
In the early 2000s, Berger challenged the state of Wyoming when his research revealed that over 70% of pronghorn migration lands had been lost in the Grand Teton mountain range. With energy infrastructure development creating new challenges, Berger created the Path of the Pronghorn, a 350-mile section in the Teton Mountain Range, the only protected corridor in the U.S.
We collected over 11,000 data points through the pronghorn's eyes as they were moving through the landscape. He took it from there to have the meetings with the politicians, the public. He has a unique way of approaching his research that nobody ever seems to have thought about.
So this is our polar bear head, and we will actually don the head.
That unique approach has led Berger to create innovative ways to conduct climate research. A reduction in sea ice means polar bears are spending more time on dry land. Berger wanted to know how the muskox would react to their increased presence.
The public gives me a hard time for dressing like an animal. The scientists get it. It's like, what's in the mind of these animals? And are they going to be able to adapt and to avoid predation? I know it looks like fun, but when you have one of these animals charging at you with these nice little hooked horns, it's not as much fun as you might think it is.
He's achieved so much. He works at it all the time, like every day. Wakes up at 4, starts working. He loves this. This is who he is.
He's made it to the top in terms of his thinking, his ideas, his publications. He's got tremendous energy. You tackle it with some ingenuity, and that makes for a world-class scientist. He's an icon.
And if more people had feelings about people and life across the planet, we would have better chances to do things. It's about communicating to help make things a little bit better. I love what I do. I feel like I'm the luckiest guy on the planet.
We've been sharing with you all of the accomplishments of these heroes of our planet, but there are also many losses. One of the saddest and most important conservation stories this year was the death of Sudan. He was the last male northern white rhino in the world. His daughter and granddaughter are the only 2 remaining northern white rhinos on Earth. Stories like Sudan's may help people realize that we really can lose iconic species, and it pushes conservationists like these finalists to work even harder. The accomplishments of past Indianapolis Prize winners are far too many to list, but we want to give you just a few examples of their groundbreaking work. Carl Jones is credited with saving birds, reptiles, and mammals from the brink of extinction. Patricia Wright rediscovered a lemur thought to be extinct and discovered a new species of lemur. Stephen Anstrup's influential work helped protect polar bears under the Endangered Species Act. Ian Douglas Hamilton pioneered GPS tracking techniques that today are critical in elephant research and conservation. George Schaller is known as the founding father of modern wildlife conservation, working with giant pandas, mountain gorillas, and lions. And the first Indianapolis Prize winner, George Archibald, is preserving the world's 15 crane species in their wetland habitats. The next prize finalist loves everything about penguins. In fact, she says penguins are her friends. So when Dee Boersma's work revealed that penguins face a severe threat, she literally created a natural safe haven to save them. And Carl Safina's research and natural writing style teach the value of animals, especially those who call the ocean home. If you want to know about the health of the world's oceans, you can start with these penguins right here. Indianapolis Prize finalist Dee Boersma knows more about penguins than almost anyone in the world. But the penguins she studies don't live anywhere near where you might expect them to.
I'm interested in all things penguins. What's not to love? They walk upright, they're comical, they're curious, they remember you. I have penguin friends, and I look them up.
Dee is tough. It's just a fact of life. She is remarkably enthusiastic and restless. Dee is never sitting still, always asking how she can make a difference, do new things, try new strategies to accomplishing her broader goals.
Have you got any other questions about penguins? I'm heavy into penguins.
She's extremely well known for this 30-year-plus data set that she has on Magellanic penguins in South America. She's able to do all of the governmental relations and soft communication and people skills that are required to get conservation accomplished on the ground, but she's really driven by the quality of science.
She tackles things with great gusto, follows through, which is why we have detailed demographic data on the penguins at Punta Tombo. It's one of the best demographic series of any wild animal anywhere.
You're perfect. Okay, hold still, Eagle.
Dee Boersma has dedicated her life to studying and saving penguins. She has worked virtually nonstop in the Galapagos Islands and Punta Tombo, Argentina, home to the world's largest population of Magellanic penguins. It was there she went toe-to-toe with companies that were harvesting the birds for their oil and skin, which can be used to make leather.
I couldn't believe that anybody was going to harvest, Magellanic penguins. And so I went down to determine what was the population size at Punta Tombo, and could they harvest penguins in a sustainable manner? And of course, the answer to that, I knew before I went. No, you can't do that.
Dealing with Argentine bureaucracy is quite something. I think a person of lesser drive would have said, forget it, it's not worth it.
Since 1982, Boersma has directed the Magellanic Penguin Project at Punta Tombo. Fieldwork revealed a severe threat to the penguins from oil dumped at sea. Boersma's efforts persuaded the local government to move oil tanker lanes further offshore. Decades of work led to the establishment of a marine protected area at Punta Tombo, a historic achievement that will protect vital ocean feeding grounds.
Penguins are really ocean sentinels, and they tell us a lot about the environment before you even really recognize it. Sea levels, of course, because of global climate change, are rising. Penguins nest really close to the beaches, so some of the nests that were suitable 40 years ago are now gone.
Dee is famous for getting her hands dirty. She ends up hauling literally tons of lava rock to build these huts, which serve as artificial caves for Galapagos penguins to nest in.
More than 40 years into her career, Boersma is never more at home than when she's in the field. Her boundless energy and curiosity are an inspiration to everyone who crosses her path, her students most of all.
This is a white morph.
When you see her working with other students, you can see them all immediately become enthralled in what she's talking about because she exudes so much passion.
She's Hurricane Dee. I mean, everywhere she goes, people know who she is.
This 40 years ago was not a marine reserve. It is now.
I look at her as a real world leader in the sense of Carl Sagan, the kind of broad out view that she passes on to all these students in a very wonderful way.
We come out and measure them here, and then we go to a place that's not protected and look for crabs there and measure them.
Dee is the ambassador for those organisms that share the planet with us. They don't have a voice unless one of us gives them a voice. Dee has been a powerful voice for them.
I want people to change the world, and I want to make it better for wildlife and for conservation. And that's only going to be done one person at a time. All of us can do something.
As you saw, the penguins at Dee studies live around the equator. But not these guys here at the Indianapolis Zoo. They like it in colder climates. Now, this is what you can expect to see at the Indianapolis Zoo. They have king penguins, which you can tell by the name, are one of the largest penguins. And they have Gen 2 penguins. These guys are known for their speedy swimming underwater. And the rockhoppers. Look for their distinctive yellow feathers. Seeing animals like these reef fish up close is one way to learn to care about them. But Indianapolis Prize finalist Carl Safina has a different approach. He encourages us to use our imagination to get out of our world and into theirs, especially for animals who live in and around the ocean.
Oh, you good doggies. I'm a person who is really in love with the living world. More and more, I perceive it as a miraculous existence. You can't feel things if you haven't touched them and been immersed in them. I'm trying to be one of the people who's been there and brought the story back.
I would describe Carl as an unapologetic spokesperson for the natural world.
Oh my God.
At his base,
Hello, you.
Carl is enthralled with the huge variation of life that has managed to bloom over the course of a couple of billion years.
He is a MacArthur Fellow and one of the 100 notable conservationists of the 21st century. But Carl Safina's love for the natural world began as a child in Brooklyn, and he has fought on its behalf ever since. Early in his career as a biologist, Safina focused his efforts on the ocean, leading successful campaigns to ban high seas drift nets and a reform of the federal fisheries law. Since 2003, the Safina Center has been the catalyst for critical conservation efforts through an engaging blend of science, art, and literature.
Does my dog really love me, or does she just want a treat?
Carl is able to really look at the big picture and describe and summarize these complex issues or systems very effectively. He's really able to sort of engage people and make them concerned about these questions.
It gets you in the gut, and that's where you need it.
If I was fighting for my life and I had to pick one person on this planet to represent me in the human court of public opinion, I think I would choose Carl Safina, because I think he's that good of a communicator and a storyteller.
Safina is the author of 7 books and essays appearing in National Geographic, Time Magazine, and the New York Times. He has become known as an author with a rare talent for telling stories that spark real-world change.
People pick up Carl's books. It's a doorway into another world that many people wouldn't step through otherwise. Whether it's the plains of Kenya, watching elephants go by as if you're standing next to him, or scuba diving in the ocean, it transports you to be a part of the experience.
Safina's latest book is a bold attempt to narrow the gap between humans and animals. In Beyond Words, What Animals Think and Feel, Safina explores animal cognition and emotion, providing a rare glimpse into the inner lives of our earthly companions.
So much of what has gone on in the particularly last 150 years, is the delegitimization of other animals and plants' rights to have a fair share of this planet. Their voice is being denied. I think he realizes that that voice needs to be restored or put into the dialogue.
He's trying to get us to pay attention so that these species are still around 5 years, 10 years, 100 years from now.
Not only do elephants know that there are humans, they know that there are different kinds of humans and that some are okay and some are dangerous. I'm trying to show more than ever that other creatures have valid existences, that they value their lives, but we have to want to let them live. They can't exist if we don't value them. The main thing that we have to do right now is to create a values change that is almost spiritual, that is deeply about the idea that we want to exist with life on this living planet.
The living planet. That's what all of the people you've seen are focused on saving, on renewing, and on getting others to appreciate. Now the big event. We're taking you inside the gala honoring their work in the field, in communities, and with government leaders. You might just meet some species heroes from the incredible places Russ has worked. Meet Mavo and Manga. They're chameleons from Madagascar, where Indianapolis Prize winner Russ Mittermeier has spent a lot of time in the field. They're joining us here at the Indianapolis Prize Gala VIP reception, where we're celebrating Russ's work and the dedication of conservationists around the world. This is the 7th time we've come together to honor an Indianapolis Prize winner and the finalists, people who've traveled thousands of miles to be here to share ideas about what we can do to save wild things and wild places. You may recognize many of the people in this room. All of the Indianapolis Prize finalists are here, and they're joined by actress Jane Alexander, who has long been a champion of conservation. Actor Harrison Ford is on the red carpet. He is receiving an award named in honor of Alexander's work. It's exciting to see people like Harrison Ford and Jane Alexander, who are using their respected and recognized voices to share stories about our animals and our planet. This event is really a celebration of achievements great and small. It's a celebration of people we may not see day to day and their tireless efforts to make our world a better place. Like Harrison Ford, whose role in conservation may not be as well known as his roles on the big screen, but he is very vocal about climate change and endangered species.
Protecting nature is first and foremost, for me, a moral imperative. Yet, saving nature is really about saving ourselves. At Conservation International, we have a motto: nature doesn't need people, people need nature. Well, having said that, it's clear that nature now does need people to speak to power, to speak truth to power, and to confront what's going on in our governments, not only here, but in other places around the world, and to return to sane policies which help protect nature. Find those who need to hear this story and tell it in a way that's compelling and fruitful. If we succeed in this, we can realize an Earth that not only has cheetahs and sharks and kestrels, but an Earth that supports human beings as well, as part of the animal kingdom. We don't have any time to waste.
Ford also honored his friend in the field, Russ Mittermeier. Mittermeier is the winner of the 2018 Indianapolis Prize, and he is one of the best-known conservationists in the world. By his own count, Russ has been to 170 countries and done field work in at least 30 of them. So the Indianapolis Prize is one that's well earned. His message to everyone is stay optimistic in the face of a challenge.
Perhaps my greatest contribution has been an unwavering commitment to species conservation, using turtles and primates as models, and not losing focus of the fact that without species conservation, all other efforts are doomed to failure. Species are the basic building blocks of ecosystems, and ecosystems and the multitude of services that they provide are essential to our own survival as well as that of the rest of the natural world. And it's just not acceptable to sit idly by and let species go extinct, which is why I and a growing number of my colleagues have become strong advocates for the concept of zero extinctions.
The people here hope their work inspires you. One of the missions of the Indianapolis Prize is to empower people and communities to advance conservation. You can learn more about all of these champions for our planet at WTHR.com/IndyPrize and follow the Indianapolis Prize on both Facebook and Twitter. Everyone involved in the Indianapolis Prize wants to raise awareness, mentor the next generation of conservationists, and underline the value of creating a balance between people and nature. This is an extraordinary chance to be a voice for the future today.